Capital One's tech team isn't just talking about multi-agentic AI. They already deployed one, Chat Concierge for car shopping. Their tech team built in self-reflection with live API checks to help buyers find a car they love. That's how they stack. That's technology at Capital One.
I'm Yasmin Gagne.
I'm Josh Christensen.
And this is Most Innovative Companies. On today's episode, contributing writer Chris Stoker-Walker.
It is designed to get you used to generative AI. It is the on-ramp so that you can start to think about it in a slightly more serious way at best.
Katie Tidwell from LaFleur.
The dress codes across all industries have become a lot more relaxed. We've tried to adapt to that.
And as always, keeping tabs.
Just say this is bad. All you had to do, slam dunk, dude. Just say this is bad.
But first, here's the download, the news you need to know this week in the world of business and innovation.
It's back, Yaz. We're talking about tariffs. So last Friday, President Trump sent the stock market into a nosedive after reigniting tariff threats to China. Trump had threatened 100% tariffs on Chinese goods starting November. These numbers always get me. It's just 400, 500, 700%. Why not more? Chinese goods starting on November 1st in response to China tightening export controls on its rare earth materials. Talk about a topic I never want to hear about again, are rare earth materials.
Yeah.
That caused the Dow to tumble 1.9%, the S&P 500 to drop 2.71%, and the NASDAQ to fall 3.56%. But stocks rallied on Monday after Trump walked back threats over the weekend on Truth Social. In other tariff news, the president's lumber, furniture, and kitchen cabinet tariffs went into effect on Friday, which is not good news for boomers trying to remodel their kitchens. These imported goods will now face tariffs ranging from 10 to 50%. And finally, in this whole tariff news item, amid trade wars and tariffs, the International Monetary Fund published a forecast on Tuesday stating that it expects a slowdown in growth of the global economy this year, slowing to 3.2% growth, or 0.1% slower than the same time last year.
On Tuesday, Instagram started to roll out new features aimed at protecting underage users from exposure to harmful content. This will never work. Users on the platform under the age of 18 will now only be able to see content rated PG-13. In other words, filtering out content like sexual nudity, extreme violence, and graphic drug use. The setting cannot be changed except by a parent or guardian's approval. A stricter content filter called limited content is also available to parents of underage users. Meta, which owns Instagram, will also introduce features next year that restrict what teen users can chat about with AI bots. Okay, sure.
Yeah, I mean, this is
a lot of incentives
things.
For them to get this right.
Yeah, there's a lot of incentives to get this right, and hopefully they will at some point. I'm always interested in those companies that are like, we're creating an insular social media platform just for kids to allow for these like slow adoptions before they're on the Instagrams and the Meta.
Have you met a 13-year-old? They're looking for sex and violence on social media. Like that is what you do when you're 13.
The customer relations manager company Salesforce unveiled a new version of its AI agent platform dubbed Agentforce 360 on Monday. A new prompting tool for AI agents named Agent Script allows users to program AI agents to have more dynamic responses to customer service situations. In November, Salesforce will also debut Agentforce Builder, an AI agent building tool, along with a vibe coding tool called Agentforce Vibes.
We need to retire that word from our lexicon.
I love it. I'm sorry. If there's anything I love about the AI age, it's that vibes has become acceptable for me to say more regularly.
News outlets ranging from CNN and The Times to Fox News and Newsmax refused on Tuesday to sign the new press policy issued by the Department of Defense, or the Department of War. The policy dictates that journalists may only access information the Pentagon makes available to them and bans them from soliciting and accessing additional information.
Otherwise known as reporting.
Yeah.
Just...
Yep. Outlets that failed to sign the policy will have their Pentagon press credentials revoked. Only conservative outlet One America News signed the policy as of the deadline on Tuesday. Hell yeah, guys.
God. OAN, so thirsty for the Department of War. Jesus Christ. How do you think Hegseth feels about his former employer not signing his memo?
Who knows, dude? He was too busy. Salazar compared him to, when he had that rally for all the generals, he compared him to,
yeah.
Michael Scott in The Office when he does Prison Mike.
That's great. Yeah, no, that's dead on. It was very like motivational speaker that nobody wanted at their high school.
It was just like,
assembly.
What are we doing?
Everyone gather. We've got this guy who we have not vetted to give a motivational speech. All right, next. After one last test flight Monday, SpaceX announced an end to its second generation, or V2, spacecraft program, which had begun this past January. V2 is succeeded by a new prototype. Can you guess the name, Yas?
Is it V3?
It is V3. I can't wait till they get to V8, which is not only more powerful, but is in fact the world's largest rocket. The V2 program had been marked by early in-flight failures, with 3 vehicles exploding mid-flight, 1 exploding during a test on the ground, but the last 2 seemed to go pretty well.
And finally, starting next year in the US, streaming service Spotify will be publishing certain video podcast series to Netflix, as well as its own platform. Shows that will stream on Netflix include the Bill Simmons podcast, Conspiracy Theories, and the Zach Lowe Show. While these shows will continue to show ads on Spotify, subscribers to Netflix's ad-free tier will be able to watch them for free.
Fascinating story here. I wonder what adoption is like for Spotify's video podcast tool, because everyone's just trying to compete with YouTube at this point. So it makes sense that Spotify and Netflix are teaming up. It's like YouTube's 2 biggest competitors teaming up to try to take them down. Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Said it before, I'll say it again. I never consume podcasts via video, but that's fine.
Anyway, subscribe to Fast Company's YouTube channel to see our podcast on video.
And that's the news you need to know today. So, Josh, do you consume a lot of AI slop?
Intentionally or unintentionally? Intentionally, no. Unintentionally.
That's the thing. I feel like I've consumed a lot against my will. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. I see it all the time. I mean, I'm still on X. I'm on Instagram. It's so much AI slop.
It's a
across
scourge.
the board. You know what actually has been really irking me lately? I forget the name of the company off the top of my head, but it's a podcast company started by someone out of Wondery that is just creating all AI-generated podcasts. Did you see this Hollywood Reporter story?
No, but I hate.
They have something
hate that.
They have like something like 3,000 to 5,000 podcasts of different types and varieties that are all AI-generated that they're publishing across the board.
Why would you listen to that? I don't know.
I don't think anyone actually does. I think it's just a paid arbitrage scheme. Like, I think they're taking because basically the economics of it are, it takes about $1 to make an episode, and they make about $1 with with ads, because they can do programmatic ads against it through any hosting platform. They make $1 for every 20 listens to the podcast.
Oh, so you just flood services and
You flood services, you pay a low cost to make it, and then I think you probably get a certain amount of organic views by doing SEO traps. Like some of their podcasts, honestly, one of them is just a short recap podcast of the Travis Kelce, Jason Kelce podcast. That's one of their most popular podcasts. And by popular, I mean probably gets 1,000 listens or something like that. And then the rest of it, you can do really cheap, paid traffic to hit your pre-roll ads that you can probably get at a lower cost than you would in terms of what you're getting back for that. It's ridiculous. I forgot the name of the company. There was a Hollywood Reporter about it that was extremely credulous about this service. And one quote from the founder was we're giving a voice to all of the AI people that, have something interesting to say. And I'm like, no, you're just content hacking. This is just content of this click farming. It's disgusting.
Well, joke's on us, because They will be around well after this podcast is shuttered.
Probably.
But the reason we're talking about this is because today we are talking about AI video technology, which has come a long way since 2023's famous Will Smith eating spaghetti fever dream of a video. Tech giants OpenAI and Meta have recently released powerful AI video generators, Sora 2 and Vibes, respectively. Both generators make it possible for users to generate hyper-realistic videos, with Sora 2 allowing content to be generated that features real-life characters. But these videos now add to the heaps of AI-generated image slop that dominate our social media feeds, raising concerns about our ability to discern what is fact and what is fiction. And in our post-truth media ecosystem, only vibes seems to matter. Here to discuss the societal and ethical implications of these tools is Fast Company contributing writer Chris Stokel-Walker. Welcome back to the show, Chris.
Thanks for having me.
So we're here to discuss Sora 2 and Vibes from Meta. Well, I mean, Sora 2 is from OpenAI. But before we even get to that, did you see the latest OpenAI update from Sam Altman, or the latest update we have from Sam Altman about being able to sext ChatGPT?
Yeah, we get to be horny on main. It's going to be great, says nobody ever.
That's always went well historically when apps get more sexy.
Yeah, I mean, and who would want to think about anything other than Sam Altman when you are being sexy with ChatGPT?
Did you see this coming? Like, what do you think was the impetus for him to be like, by the way...
Well, let's put it this way.
You know what I mean?
What does this mean for AGI? Because I think it means it's a little further off.
I love how they're like, AI will cure cancer. And they're like, you can sext AI. Okay, we're still working on the cancer part.
This is the thing, right? They were talking about this. Sam Altman had this higher calling for AI literally like a month ago, where he was saying, we are doing very important work, and therefore it is hugely vital that everybody gives us all of their GPUs. And then he does this. So, yeah, I mean, I have seen folks pointing out that this is not necessarily the action of a company that is hugely confident in what it is doing and how vital its technology is going to be in the months and years to come. And I don't know, maybe this is a cry for help. Sam Altman has been talking about the bubbliness of AI over the last few months, and maybe this is just his way of saying, actually, this whole ride is over, the stock market is going to crash tomorrow, and you're all going to be lonely, so you can then just sex ChatGPT.
We're never turning a profit.
Did you see 92% of GDP growth for the U.S. is driven by AI this year?
Wild.
Yeah,
That combined with this announcement from yesterday from Sam Altman, and then also, did you see at their developer conference the Jony Ive, Sam Altman talk on stage?
Oh, I didn't watch it.
You don't need to. They say absolutely nothing.
Right? I
It's-
skimmed through Twitter afterwards, and I was like,
Yeah, it was like
wasn't Jony kind of like, we have many options, but we're zeroing in on some.
Yeah.
basically,
God,
yeah,
what do
Chris,
you
I'm sure
mean?
you kept up on this. There was literally no headlines you could possibly pull from that chat, and this was like the big thing a few months ago. It's like Jony Ive's going to OpenAI to do this partnership. This is going to reinvent wearables or whatever it is, and they've got nothing.
Yeah.
We learned nothing from Humane.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Well,
seriously.
we should learn a lot from Humane, shouldn't we, really? Jony Ive is a really interesting character because actually, he was and undoubtedly is going to go down in history for being vitally important in terms of, inventing the iPhone, being kind of the Paul McCartney to the John Lennon in Apple, but actually is now just playing the same hits over and over again. It's really interesting because he has become the consequence, it feels like, of his education. So the city in which I'm based in the UK, we have two universities, two colleges. One of them is kind of like a very old-fashioned, very formal academic one. One is very much a kind of cutting-edge design school where actually Jony Ive got his qualification. And they, even today, 30 plus years after Jony Ive got his qualification, first thing that you see on their marketing materials is Jony Ive, the inventor of the iPhone, studied here. And so it feels like we're seeing the same thing with what Jony Ive is actually doing publicly, where he's just playing the same hits constantly and no different.
So this is Jony Ive's wings.
Yeah, that's a good analogy, actually. Yeah, it's Oh my God, I can't. Let's take that joke further. No.
So I'm sorry, I took us on a sexting detour because it was such a odd announcement and everybody's talking about it today and it's bleak. But we are here to talk about OpenAI's Sora 2 and Meta's Vibes. Chris, tell us, what are these AI generated video apps? Why are they in the news so much lately?
The hell, in short. They're complete and utter hell on Earth. I mean, the reason why they're here is because, again, I think there is a recognition that for all of the hype, for all of the fact that there are super adopters of this sort of stuff, of generative AI, post ChatGPT, and there are people who are like huge adherents of what is going on. I think for the average person, they are hearing a lot about the generative AI revolution, and they're kind of looking around and going, well, like, where is this? Like, when is this meteor meant to crash right in front of me and change my life?
Or they're like, I see Shrimp Jesus on my Facebook timeline. Is this it?
Yeah, right. And it turns out that actually it is for them. So this is a way that they can have a cultural touchstone. They themselves can create Shrimp Jesus if they want to. And I think that is kind of the key thing with Sora and with Vibes as well, is it is designed to get you used to generative AI. It is the on-ramp so that you can start to think about it in a slightly more serious way at best. At worst, it is a way to keep the boomers on Facebook occupied while they try and monetize their use.
Now, this kind of comes in the middle of people talking about deep fakes and sort of the danger of all this. And, put it into that context. First of all, how accurate is it now? Is detection software able to parse the two and then tell us, how serious a threat is?
I'm really concerned about this. For all of the joking, for all that is stupid that we can create this sort of stuff, I have traditionally felt like, as a tech reporter, I have been able to distinguish the difference between a real image and a deepfake, as we used to call it. And I have a, unfortunately, long history in journalism now, and I have been reporting on deepfakes for a long time. And I remember distinctly, around about 7 or 8 years ago, taking a phone call from an expert where they were telling me that it is very simple to find out what a deepfake is and where it is and to distinguish it from a real thing, because all you used to have to do was look at the earlobes, and the earlobes were screwed up because they couldn't do that. The training data wasn't good enough. So you could see the earlobes are okay. And that was your easy tell. Then we moved on to the fact that it was blinking for video. So like people would blink in real life. They didn't blink on deepfake videos. Again, easy tell. Then it became the fingers, right? If you've got screwed up fingers, unless you've been in some sort of horrific industrial accident, then
yeah,
you can't tell the difference. Now, I am starting to question myself, the stuff that I see on social media. So, for instance, Jane Goodall recently died, a famed environmentalist. She had apparently said just before her death that she felt like Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Donald Trump, and a few others should be put on a rocket and sent on a one-way trip to Mars. Whether or not you agree with that or not, it's still quite a funny thing for someone to say, but it is outlandish, right? And so I'm thinking, well, did Jane Goodall actually say this? And I'm watching the video of her say this, but I'm still going, as a journalist who likes to think that they know the difference between this stuff, is that actually true? So this is hugely screwing up my idea of reality.
Was it true?
Yeah, this was true. She did that, which makes her the funniest person on a deathbed.
So you haven't been duped yet, but you feel like you could be soon.
Yeah, I think I really could. And part of the problem is that, detection tools don't really work. We have seen some early research that suggests that, for instance, Nano Banana, the model that generates Google's AI images, which is the best named thing in the world, has a kind of pattern on it when you amp up the contrast and all of that stuff. So you can actually see there's a telltale sign there. But who is going to actually do that first off? Then you think about, well, okay, so Sora and Vibes, they were released, they're designed to allow you to create AI video that is really convincing, has audio, doesn't have some of those screwed up artifacts that we used to associate with bad AI generated content. And one of the mitigations that OpenAI had was they put a watermark on, a kind of leaping, blooping, moving logo that said Sora. That sounds fine in theory. In practice, what happened was within a day of Sora being released, the web was flooded with Sora watermark removers. And so this becomes a huge problem. And the reason why I think it's a problem is I think, by my understanding, the only English speaking journalist that spoke to a guy called Pablo Xavier a couple of years ago for a story for BuzzFeed News at the time. Pablo Xavier is a Chicago laborer, and he is the man who created the infamous image of the Pope in a puffer jacket, the Pope wearing Balenciaga.
Oh, never forget.
Right? Everybody knows it. You can envisage it in your mind
Yeah.
right now when I say that. So that was a deepfake, and Pablo Xavier deliberately created that to be a deepfake. He uploaded it to a subreddit designed to try and just post like AI-generated images, and it was labeled as such. But what happened was it got shorn of that context and shared around the web, and actually then that becomes a huge issue. And I think that is even more concerning when we're talking about moving images, because seeing really is believing, and now you have no way of knowing whether or not you can believe it.
Josh, have you fallen for a deep fake before?
I think I have I mean, they have gotten really good, and because they're also like mimicking like compression. Like when you upload a video and you over compress it, it becomes really hard to tell all of the little details, and the fuzziness and the movement gets a little more jagged. So it's sort of playing on like where lower 5 video is. I think I approach videos now like I do telephone calls, where I think just everything's spam, unless it's a saved number in my phone. And even then, I'm like, is that my mom? I don't know. So now I just got into the place where I'm over skeptical about everything. And I have to like double check whether anything's real when I see like something that, like to Chris's point with the Jane Goodall thing, like seems outlandish or seems like strange or different or any bit out of place, which is not a great place to be in, because then there's the other end of people who are, you know, let's say boomers, and honestly some pretty, it's, you know, people who are not discerning and are just naturally credulous about these things. That's the scary part. But it's also not great to be on our side, where we're just like have to fact check every video we see.
You say our side, but I accidentally followed a because I follow a lot of wildlife accounts, and I accidentally followed like a gorilla family account, but then it turned out it was all AI. I was like, like I sent a video to my husband. He was like, "This is clearly AI."
So yeah. Well, transition from that, yeah.
So I want to talk about, I guess, the adoption of AI images and video generating technologies. How widespread is the adoption right now, Chris? And how is it changing the way people use social media in the first place?
Yeah, so I have to declare a lack of interest here, which is that I'm based in the UK. I have tried to get access to Sora. We are currently not available to get access to it here in the UK. Yeah, I think it must be some, I don't know whether it's a throttling of GPUs or if it's a Online Safety Act thing, because we have kind of slightly more restrictive tech laws here. So like my consumption of Sora and All Vibes has been through other people posting about it on social media. And it seems just like a boomer's dream and everybody else's nightmare. To me, it feels like it is the Facebook feed of a 65-year-old come to life and animated. And that, I think, is quite odd, because actually what you're seeing is the ability for what was once a self-contained pollution of social media now becoming just generalized, right? We used to have like AI slop just dominating the feeds of certain people who interacted with AI slop. But now, Yaz, you're seeing gorillas in your feed, which are starting to pollute your feed. And now maybe everything that you see will be AI gorillas doing things all over.
There's also this trend, I think, we see where people are making kind of humorous but like close to reality situations. There's like, you know, there's videos of like Sam Altman on a Ring camera asking someone for GPUs, which is pretty funny, let's be honest. But I guess here's the thing. I find that amusing. How many people think this is hilarious and shareable? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think it's me, you, Josh, and maybe like like 50% of the listeners, but maybe not all of them. So, I mean, that is a problem, right? So there are the people who are extremely online and extremely tech literate, for whom these inside jokes are very obviously they're very obviously jokes, and therefore we very obviously know they are AI generated. Sam Altman is not walking into a Target, sweeping the shelf of GPUs and trying to walk out, or knocking on random people's doors and saying, do you have any spare capacity that I can use? Yet, because we see that as a joke, we can kind of then connect that and go, well, this is realistic, but it's not actually real.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't know the joke, if you're not in on it, I think that you become tricked very easily. And the concern is there are different constituencies that will all have their little in-jokes. And there's no guarantee that you as a user will know all of those in-jokes and will therefore be in on the joke. So actually the risk of you kind of being tricked a lot, I think, is very, very high here.
Social media is already overrun with AI slop. OpenAI has also said they wanted to launch their own social media platform that will be AI-based. And I guess like the two things I've been trying to understand are, one, is AI slop all over social media inevitable? And two, is that what people want? Like, do people want to join a social network that is like so based on shit you're creating using generative AI? This is a real question.
Yeah, I don't. But I don't know whether I'm the weird one or everybody else. Okay, so we're at least two weird people, or we're actually sharing the viewpoints of many other people. To me, social media, the clue there is in the name, right? You want to have social interactions with other people.
Yeah.
The promise of this stuff 20 years ago, when it was all established, was you can connect with people around the world. I had friends that I went to school with who went around the world and around the country, and suddenly I could keep in touch with them while not occupying the same room. If I am being asked to instead interact with an AI facsimile of them that doesn't really do things that I want them to, I'm not so sure that I want to stick around there. I mean, it is interesting. Like, I think that in some ways, social media was already sort of bankrupt. We've seen data in the last week or so that suggests social media usage has been on a downturn since 2022. So
how widespread is the availability of AI video tools? And also, like, is the learning curve really big or not? I actually don't know because I haven't tried myself.
No, it's a prompt away, right? And that's the concern, I think, is that you can just very easily replicate this stuff. So suddenly, if you're thinking about the nightmare scenario of the boomers rising, the boomers who were previously just consuming AI slop are now able to learn how to generate AI slop. And suddenly you have kind of the moment
Night of the Living Garys.
Yeah, right. You have the moment at which the zombies realize that they can carry the torches and they can start setting fire to stuff. And actually now we're in real trouble here. So to me, this is concerning because what it does is it turns those consumers also into creators. And one of the things that we've seen is that OpenAI isn't being shy, nor are Meta, about encouraging you to create your own videos and to share them widely. So suddenly we get submerged, I think, by all of this stuff. And that, to me, just pollutes the information environment so much that kind of almost makes you just want to give up.
What is the business incentive driving, Meta and OpenAI to push for this kind of AI generative content to take over people's feeds?
Yeah, I think we have to look at this through the context of the bubble that we think we might well be in, and the point at which that...
Do you think we're in a bubble, by the way?
Yeah, I mean, like, when you start to have, OpenAI paying companies that pay it to take its chips to then use them, and also you have like a whole ecosystem of renting space on GPUs that is being kind of fulfilled by and used by the same companies. I think that when you start to have people like Sam Altman saying there are bubbles, then you have to think that there really are bubbles, because I don't really see what benefit he gets from saying that, whether it is in the private market with investors or whether it is, I can't see a way in which him saying that puts off competitors and benefits OpenAI. And that is generally, I think, the worldview of Sam Altman, and what he says publicly is to benefit the company. So when he's saying that, when you have the Bank of England, you have the Fed, you have, I think the International Monetary Fund was saying it, it's kind of a case of when, not if, and at what size, rather than if it will ever happen. And so I think that that has to be borne in mind in terms of why companies are pushing out these social products that are layering in AI quite so strongly. Because if and when the bubble bursts, there's going to be a retrenchment, right? I don't think we're going to see this at the scale of the dot-com bursting. I think it's going to be sort of a much smaller scale one where there will be champions that remain. But it does mean that there will be fewer of them. And so if you are the indispensable service, if you are the indispensable app, and the way that you do that is by kind of building up use cases over time and loyalty from your users, then that, I think, is the way that it works. So to me, it's about they're thinking of how do we make our users sticky, and how also do we start to maybe think about building up a super app style thing, which we know has been the case, that lots of not just AI companies, but tech companies writ large have been trying to mimic over years. Whether or not they can do that successfully, I don't think so. But at least this gives them a better chance of surviving in the event that this whole thing stops and suddenly there's some fewer competitors around that.
Not to scoop ourselves, and I won't say this is for an upcoming podcast interview, but a tech company exec that we recorded an interview recently with was talking about how he thinks it's more likely that we end up with like 1,000 AI companies that you're going to for like agentic things in the future versus just a few winners or one winner. OpenAI, Google, Meta, what have you, becoming the outcome. He said that, and he knows a lot more than I do, so I was like, there's got to be something behind that. At the same time, it felt naive to me. What is your take on that?
I think it depends on who you mean by we, Josh, right? Like, it certainly, if you are a Silicon Valley exec, if you're someone who is steeped in this space, then yes, you will use multiple platforms and you will fork out $20 a month to multiple companies. If you are someone in Middle America, we have to bear in mind that the way that these technologies are being presented is that they will be so ubiquitous that everybody will be using them with an internet connection at some point. I'm not so sure that the average person is going to do this. Does the average person subscribe to Max and to Netflix and to Peacock and to all of the other services that they possibly could? No, we know that there is data that suggests probably your cap is maybe 3 to 4 different streaming services before either you get sick of it or you frankly just run out of money and go, this is not sensible budgeting. So, I don't think.
And then there's the freaks who only subscribe to Crunchyroll.
Right, yeah, well, exactly. Well, they are our core podcast audience, so you'll never hear me say a bad thing against them. But, I think I can see a world in which, or I can see a part of the world in which that is the case, where you delve into different kind of services, right? Like I will use Perplexity. I have a ChatGPT subscription. I have, I use Claude occasionally. By accident, I bought a subscription to Manus, which is an AI agent that I have for a whole year that I didn't mean to do. So now I have that. So I am part of that, but I don't imagine that I will be using these in kind of like microtransactional ways, because actually, I think that the average person doesn't know the difference, right? If you ask the average person, what is the thing that is summarizing their emails on their Gmail app, I reckon they're probably going to say ChatGPT. They're not going to say Gemini. And I think that's the thing, right? It's like this ubiquitous brand name now. It's a very specific, company and term that has become almost a generic use case.
All right, we'll be back with Chris for Keeping Tabs, but first we're going to take a quick break followed by my conversation with Katie Tidwell from LaFleur. Workwear brand LaFleur makes versatile, office-appropriate, affordable clothing for professionals. The company had raised money from traditional VC firms prior to the pandemic, but following the pandemic and the sudden D2C winter, the company struggled. I spoke with Katie Tidwell, the company's Senior Vice President of Sales and Operations, about how the company raised $3 million from its biggest fans and individual female investors, and how it became profitable. You've been with the company for a pretty long time. Tell me about how you joined, why you joined. Tell me all that.
Yeah, of course. So I will be celebrating 10 years with this fall, which is kind of wild. I joined kind of right as they were taking off. I had recently moved to New York, had always wanted to work in fashion, and really was like drawn to the mission. And so it's been a really great ride. I think I've been able to see many versions of the company. Like there was the, early crazy years of the company. There was the really tough years of COVID, and then the rebuilding years, which is what we're in right now. And so it's been interesting.
So I want to talk about some of those eras, right?
Yeah.
I think we all remember when direct-to-consumer companies were so hot, and then LaFleur raised some money. Tell me when you saw things kind of start to change, when VCs were like, I don't know about this, and why you think that is.
Yeah, I mean, I think for us in particular, like we noticed a big shift around, actually right before COVID. I think like a lot of our directed priorities early on were like growth at all costs.
Right. And how did you pursue that? Was it advertising, marketing?
Yeah, we really invested pretty heavily in digital advertising. And a big part of that was our bento service. And so that was a trial model. You filled out a survey, you were sent pieces, you kept what you wanted and then sent it back. And that really helped a lot of our growth early on. But I think as we internally started to feel like we need to focus on more than like top line growth, really took a look at it and just like decided that bento wasn't a sustainable, profitable channel for us. And so we sunset that in August of 2019. And we're really focused on stores and retail, and then COVID hit.
Yeah. And to stick with bento, you're relaunching it, right?
Yes.
So why if it didn't work the first time, what's the plan?
Yes. So we have relaunched bento. We relaunched it in April 2024 in name and in spirit, I will say.
Yeah.
The operations are a little bit different. And so we really wanted to go back and say like, okay, what worked about bento before, which was the stylist assistance, having personal curated looks, kind of pushing customers to like go outside their comfort zone a little bit. We felt like that was really important to maintain. And then we thought through like, what are the pieces of this experience that aren't sustainable? A big part of it was like the inventory and even just like the ops of sending someone all of this product and not actually charging their credit card for it. And so with our relaunch, we took the best pieces of the original bento with updated operations and flows and relaunched in April of 2024. And it's been great.
So what does it look like now?
Yeah. So now a customer will come to our site. They will still fill out a survey. And then they will text actually back and forth with a stylist. The stylist will say, yeah, it's like, I saw your survey.
Is it a human stylist or an AI stylist?
It's a human stylist.
It's a human stylist.
It's a human stylist. Although that's not to say we're not playing around with like, enhancing it a little bit. And the stylist will text with the customer, ask a few clarifying questions, put together a digital lookbook. Text it to you. It will have a note, it will have pairing options, and then you'll look through it, pick the pieces you're most confident in, and purchase those directly.
So it's a recommendation rather than sending the actual clothes and getting them back. Yeah.
Exactly. Although without giving too much away, we're coming up with an updated version. We're probably going to beta test actually next week that tries to like add a little bit of that surprise element back in because I do think what's really great about our stores is our team is able to really build trust and say like, just trust us, just try it. And that's so hard to do on a website. And so we're continuing to try to think through how we can bring that to life a little bit.
To go back to our earlier conversation about, VC funding and pursuing this growth at all cost model, we saw a lot of direct-to-consumer brands launch brick and mortar stores. Tell me what that decision was like, what those conversations would like, and then we'll get to the pandemic after that. And tell me a little bit about your brick and mortar strategy now.
Of course. So brick and mortar has always been part of our DNA. So even when I started 10 years ago, we had a showroom right next to our office, and that was a really important way for us to get customer feedback, see what the product's looking like in real life. And then it slowly grew from there. I think we've certainly found that omni-channel customers are just a lot stickier, have a lot higher LTV. And so we really wanted to create, different ways for her to interact with us. When we've opened stores, we're traditionally looking at where do we have a really high concentration of e-commerce customers. But we've certainly pivoted our strategy since COVID and even before that, like when we first launched retail, we were strictly appointment-based shopping. And so we were kind of trying to mimic actually the bento where you fill out a survey, you then come in. And I think that really resonated with a subsect of our customers, but not all of them. Some people just want to come in.
Also don't want to buy 6 things, you know what I mean?
Exactly. And so when I started to get more involved in retail, made it actually a big push to try and it sounds crazy, but get people comfortable with customers coming in without appointments. It was just anyone that comes in is great. It doesn't matter if she has an appointment or not. Let's not be so startled by it. We sell clothes. To anyone.
How do you think about holding inventory in stores? We've seen some direct-to-consumer stores adopt this model where you just try things on in a showroom and then they get sent to you. Others think it's better to have all the clothes there. How do you think about that?
So we do a little bit of a mix. Previously, when we were strictly showroom model, almost everything was shipped from our warehouse. It is just a lot more of an efficient use of inventory. What we started to keep track of, though, was what are the lost sales? Because we do have people who come and say, I have an interview tomorrow. I just tried on my suit. Nothing fits. If you can't give it to me right now, I don't need it in a week. I need it tomorrow. And so in some of our stores, what we started to do is what are our core products? How can we have more of that in stock and really kind of build up that inventory? And then as we've opened more stores post-COVID, we've really had this hybrid approach where they do take appointments, but they look like a normal store. They have fully stocked shelves. And then, of course, launching things like ship from store just helps us be even more efficient with our inventory. And so, we're able to really kind of have one pool of inventory for all customers, regardless of where they are.
Now, the challenges of COVID for an LaFleur are pretty obvious on the surface. And it's been a while since COVID, so I don't think we need to dwell on them too much. But I'm thinking of people working from home, so not wearing workwear as much. I'm thinking of, people not going to the office as much. The fact that people couldn't go to your stores. But I guess I also think we've seen a sort of more permanent shift. People are going to the office less now than they did before. I think people are generally more casual than they were before. How have you reacted to that as a business?
Yeah, I certainly think the dress codes across all industries have become a lot more relaxed. And so we've tried to adapt to that, and I think, have expanded our product assortment a lot. We've launched a material called Better Than Denim, which, is a little bit up from a jean. I also think where we've done a lot of investment and I've seen a really big increase in our business is the jacket business. I think it's so common for women to throw on a jacket over jeans and a tee. And so we've really tried to understand how is she dressing right now? And also we've, from a storytelling perspective, really tried to show the versatility and, you can wear this in the office, but you can also wear it working from home. And I think having machine washable, easy to wear products just really helps continue to push that message forward.
The fashion industry has had so many challenges because of tariffs. How has that impacted your company? And have you had to shift any of your logistics?
Yeah, it's had a significant impact on us. I think, going into 2025, probably 75 to 80% of our products were meant to be coming in from China.
Wow.
And we had really deep partnerships with our factories there. And so, when tariffs first started and it increased slightly, we were able to still bring product in. And then as it just escalated so quickly, we just had to halt bringing in product for a while. And
were you just selling out a lot, basically? Or
we're feeling it now, actually. And so what we've had to do is we've had to just really improve our inventory turn. And we've had to get a little bit creative around what do we have to sell right now? And, there's all sort of repercussions in terms of we we had product we were going to launch in May that then we couldn't bring it in time because we didn't know if we were going to be able to afford to because of the tariffs. But we already had photos because we had the photo sample.
Yeah.
And, there's just like so many little things across like the whole spectrum that impact it. Like we still have some products on our site right now that are in other images and customers are like, oh my gosh, like, can I buy that? And we're like,
This other thing. And you're
we are
like,
so sorry, you cannot. It was meant to be for sale, but it's not right now.
have you started using other factories or manufacturing partners? Like, how is that going right now?
Yeah, I think like, all credit to our production team and our product development team. Like they've truly been working around the clock since all of this started in Q1. And we've developed factory relationships in Turkey. We've strengthened ones in Peru. We've started to look into more in Vietnam and the Philippines. And so building up relationships and shifting what we can, I think the reality is that it takes time. And we're still somewhat of a small business. And so I think as more larger companies are also shifting to other countries, it's even
You're competing with them, right? And
exactly. And the minimum order quantities, like there's a lot that goes into it, and it's been a real puzzle to solve.
To go back to sort of the VC era of funding everything and pursuing growth at all costs, LaFleur has had a fascinating kind of fundraising story, and I think we'll get to what happened in 2024 soon. But when did you realize, like, maybe we're not going to go for another VC round? Or like, or when were your investors kind of like, where's our $1 billion return? You know what I mean? Was there a turning point?
I think honestly, COVID was a big one. I think a lot of our investors at the time saw, like, truthfully, what a nosedive our business was in and kind of wrote us off. Not all, but most.
Purely because of workwear generally just being a category that didn't seem super resilient?
Yeah, it was like a little bit of a light switch. Like, I think Sarah has shared this before, but February of 2020 was like our top performing collection. We had just opened a new store and we were like, oh, this is it.
Like, we made it.
Yeah, exactly. And oh my, how we were wrong. And so I think like as 2020 progressed, that's really when some of our previous VCs were like, you know what, we're ready to like throw in the towel on you guys. And so I think, Sarah has always been really thoughtful about who she brings on from an investor perspective and wants to make sure that it's someone who also like truly believes in the brand and truly believes in the future of the brand. And so that's kind of where she's been focused for, the last few years.
We, ran an article in 2024 about how you all brought in a group of 25 female investors to raise about $3 million. And before we talk about that in and of itself, what led you to be in such a dire position?
Yeah. So it's pretty common, I will say, for retailers to use ABLs or like asset-based lenders because there's a lot of seasonality in the business. And so our lender actually went under and caused Sarah, I think, has joked like, wow, we thought COVID was a challenge. That was like so shocking. And I think like, it put us in a position where we needed to have enough to make sure we could continue operations. And so as Sarah said, like, she is nothing but like an incredibly creative problem solver.
But it sounds like you all went back to VC investors who basically said no because the multiple returns they were expecting were no. Family offices, like, talk through all the options you explored and then how you came up with this last one.
Yeah. Part of it was also a very condensed time frame. And so she needed to act very quickly.
Yeah.
And so I think she had a few exploratory conversations and just felt like this probably isn't going to be quick enough for what I need to do. And so, went out to this group of women and some of them included customers. And it was like really amazing to see. I remember sitting on that Zoom call. It was a Friday afternoon
with like 25 women who agreed to put in money.
Yeah.
What was the average like What was average investment?
The investment?
Yeah.
I actually don't know that off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm.
But there was certainly a range. I think the minimum that we were able to take was $15,000. And then there were certainly some who wrote significantly bigger checks.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like it was really interesting to be on that call, to see the turnout. I know this was written about in the Fast Company article, but like such a shift in terms of like who was writing the checks, which was really great to see.
Yeah, so I want to talk a little more about that. Like, the people writing the checks previously were generally not women, it's fair to say?
Generally not women.
Why do you think... I think the why is also there just still aren't as many female investors, but also, why do you think the women who did write you a check in that round do it? Like, what were they seeing that maybe other investors weren't?
Yeah, I think, to talk about some of the customers that participated, for instance, like the customers in that round were pretty longstanding customers. And I think what has like set apart is our community.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have great products, but there's something really special about the community. And I think it was really great to see those women recognizing that, celebrating that, and supporting that. And even like, some of them spoke on that call a little bit too. And I think like the fundamentals of the business are really strong.
Mm-hmm.
And so that also helps.
Yeah. You're profitable, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So we're, I think like we've talked a little bit internally about like, wow, we're still standing post-COVID and like what a celebration that is. And so it hasn't been without the challenges. And last year with the lender collapse was certainly one of them.
Now, Sarah's talked about having a mission or a new mission to make the company fully female funded.
Mm-hmm.
What's it going to take?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I can say that, but I think she's working on it. It kind of comes down to our core mission, and we really believe that when women succeed, the world is a better place. And so we, to the extent that we can, try and work with female-owned or at least female-run factories. We look through that in the vendors that we work with. And so I think it's just another way to kind of like bring that through. And we've like certainly have had supportive male investors, but I think when it's a woman, she just like gets the product and gets the mission and just, it's a little bit easier for her to understand the value.
That makes a lot of sense. When we talk about the future of I'm curious about how you're thinking of expanding the brand. A few data points I would say is like the ROI on social media is far lower than it was before.
Yeah.
We've seen a lot of brands that have brick and mortar standalone stores go into wholesale a little more. We've also seen D2C brands that had one lane expand to a lot of different categories. How do you think about all those things?
Yeah. We are certainly thinking about all of those things. I think to just like touch first on the ROI in terms of digital marketing and social media in particular, like what we've found, like many other brands, is just how competitive it continues to be and how unpredictable it continues to be. And so that's been something we've been trying to solve for the last few years. And where we've started to see some really great momentum is acquiring customers through our stores and specifically by pulling in events and launching events. And so we started to see some nice momentum there last year and have really kind of like turned it up from a priority perspective this year, which has been great to see. And, we're able to acquire a customer through an event for, 30% of the cost as we do through digital. And so it's just a lot more.
What kinds of events have been really popular?
Yeah, we've had some really great ones. We kind of categorize them a few different ways. We have some of our marquee events. And so those are geared a little bit more towards returning customers, but one of the favorites is actually a headshot event. And so we bring in a photographer, we have customers sign up, We have them, try on their jacket, of course. And then they get like a really wonderful updated headshot. So we do a few marquee events like that. We've done some collection previews with our design director. But I think what's been really great to see and where we've seen a lot of good momentum is what we call our like sip and shops. And so that's hosting different groups in our space for cocktails, for snacks, and conversation. And that can take many different forms. Sometimes there's like a fireside chat. Sometimes it's a styling presentation. We will even work with companies who have a new class of employees coming in and who haven't quite figured out the dress code yet. And that's where we can help and partner with them on some of the content. And it's been a really great lever for us, and it's been really great to see.
But to go back to wholesale and other categories.
Yeah.
Tell me your thoughts on or where you stand there.
Yeah, wholesale has actually been a really great growth lever for us. Mm-hmm. Our wholesale sales are up significantly to last year. And we've kind of started to dip our toes into it. So we are, doing dropship with a bunch of the majors and looking to continue to expand into that, looking to also try and build relationships with different specialty stores. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there, and we don't really feel like we've cracked the nut yet, but we are very focused on that because, e-com is a challenged channel for a lot of brands, and we need to make sure that we have our other ones that can help us continue to grow.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Other categories, what else are you thinking of launching?
Yeah, I will say like our assortment continues to grow. We're trying to make sure that we're dressing her for all the occasions she wants to get dressed for. Mm-hmm. And so, playing with formality a little bit. We are also next year really wanting to kind of like pull our price point. So we have some really luxe pieces we're launching, and then we're also trying to launch some like really more affordable entry line pieces just to kind of stretch that a little bit more. And then, certainly continuing to test into different categories. One thing we've played around with this year is actually acting as like a bit of a marketplace. And so we do carry some other brands on our site right now.
How do you decide what other brands to carry?
We don't have a science for it yet. It's
vibes.
It's vibes. Yeah. I think some of it is also looking at like maybe categories. Actually, I'll give an example. So previously we had our own shoe line, and we like had invested in shoe development, and then it wasn't our biggest category, and COVID happened, and so we had to refigure where we were going to put resources, and shoes wasn't one of them. But we had historical shoe sales, and we also have a lot of customers asking us for shoe recommendations, and so pulled on Sarah Flint as a dropship partner. And so some of it is like listening to our customer a little bit too, and honestly some of it is even when we're styling photo shoots, we're like, what would make this look better? And that's one of the ways we do it too.
I want to talk a little bit about generative AI. Every company I talk to says they're using it, for customer service and then also to optimize just kind of operations in the office. Are you using it any other way? Do you anticipate ever using it in shoots? Like, what are those conversations like?
We would love to try and figure out how to use it in shoots. We are on the creative side, testing a few different platforms. And I don't think, who knows what I'll be saying in 3 years, but I don't think it would ever fully replace shoots. But I think there's a lot of interesting use cases. To give an example, we launched a dress in July that was like a little bit slow to sell. And we were like, oh gosh, this would actually be perfect in fall. But the model's wearing strappy sandals. And so it's like, oh, can we put her in boots? I think there's a lot of interesting use cases there. And so that's what we're starting to test and starting to see. And I think what I've tried to also have in the back of my mind is like, what are the points in the customer experience or like the interactions with the stylist where we need a human, and what are the ones where we just need like speed and efficiency, and how can we start to play around with that?
What is your best-selling piece, and why do you think it's selling so well?
It will be our Moreland jacket. It is in our origami tech fabric. It is so lightweight. It is machine washable. It is wrinkle resistant. It actually, when we first launched it, we sold it in this like tiny little bag because you could fold it up super small and then voila, pull it out and it was wrinkle free. And it's just such a great like goes with anything piece. And so, yeah.
Well, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Okay, we are back, and it's time to wrap up the show with Keeping Tabs. This is where each of us shares a story, trend, or piece of pop culture we're following right now. And Chris, since you're our guest again, what are you keeping tabs on?
Yeah, from the far-flung isles of the UK, I bring an interesting documentary that I am super keen to watch. It is not yet out, but will be soon. And I imagine because it also is based partly in the US, will make its way over to streaming services there as well. It's called How I Made £1 Million in 90 Days. It's a documentary that is made by a guy called Uber Butler. Anybody know the name?
Nope.
Okay.
I thought you were going to say Uwe Ball.
No, so his name Uwe Ball. That would be a good name for him. Uber Butler is a guy who you've probably heard of, but you don't recognize the name. He is kind of like a UK prankster. He used to be a journalist for Vice.
I know exactly the vibe now.
Yeah, he's the guy with blonde hair, and he set up a famous restaurant and made it the #1 restaurant in the UK.
Now.
And he's done a few other pranks like that. And actually, he is doing a documentary where he tries to make like £1 million, which is $1.2 or $1.3 million in just under 3 months by kind of doing all sorts of stuff. So he lands in New York. He speaks to folks who have kind of made a few millions, including the founder of Venmo. And he basically develops an app, which I think is kind of interesting. So he is trying to do this.
Immediately gets investment from SoftBank.
Yeah, right. Like this is the way. If you have a convincing deck, then you are always all the way there.
Josh, what are you keeping tabs on?
I'm sure you both read the Politico story about the Young Republicans group chat messages.
Oh my God. And then JD Vance's follow-up tweets were so nuts.
Oh my God. Yeah, this is like slam dunk to throw these people under the bus, JD Vance. This group chat is wild.
So easy to just be like, this is bad.
Yeah, bad. Saying I love Hitler is pretty bad. So for those who haven't seen, this is a story where a bunch of, I think it was Telegram chats of young Republican members from across the country. Some of them were in like the New York Young Republicans, which also, by the way, this isn't just college kids. It's like 18 to 40-year-olds who are in this chat, including people who were like established staffers on the Hill. And just like, it was not just edgy jokes, as JD Vance was saying. It's rough. Like,
it's really bad.
I like, honestly, like, it's like everyone makes a little bit of an off-color joke from time to time. This is not that. This is crazy shit. So that's what I'm keeping tabs on, and mostly keeping tabs on the people like JD Vance and how people are responding to it. I feel like most elected Republicans actually were pretty quick to condemn this as they go along.
Like most people were like, yeah, this is pretty bad.
This
is
bad. And then like firings. Vice President JD Vance, though, turns it back to like the Jay Jones story, the AG candidate in Virginia. And it's just like, my guy, you can't turn it back to that. No one's paying attention to that writ large. Most people are going to be like, what's he referring to? And then being like, this isn't anywhere near as bad as what this one guy said, which what Jay Jones said in text messages was bad. But you can't defend.
It's also like it's fine. Dude. It's like it's fine. Both things are bad. Cool.
Yeah,
like
it's totally fine. You don't try to call it back. Just say this is bad. All you had to do, slam dunk, dude. Just say this is bad. It's really easy. Oh, you lost a few staffers on the Hill, and the Young Republicans are out of favor.
Why do you think that JD Vance is like that? Why does he always go on the attack and is never willing to kind of cede any ground?
I think it's just habitual at this point. I think he's just a shit poster. And those people are just pathologically conditioned to just not back down and always be on the attack. I think that's just what it is. He's so internet brained.
I think because he's a robot, he doesn't really have a good sense of right and wrong yet.
Yeah.
So he's just like,
He's still learning. He's waiting for the 6.0 ChatGPT
He
patch.
needs more training data.
But
Remember when he was in a donut shop and they were like, "What flavor do you want?" And he was like, "Whatever makes sense."
I don't know, whatever's good. Yaz, what are you keeping tabs on?
So I've got two. The first is Olivia Nuzzi,
Oh, God.
who I think everybody remembers, is now the West Coast editor of Vanity Fair, which I think is an excellent choice. Like, I think they, that editor-in-chief, who I don't know much about.
Gotta keep her off the East Coast for obvious reasons.
No, I was just like, what a buzzy, perfectly Vanity Fair choice.
Oh, yeah,
She
for
is,
sure.
however, writing a memoir about her digital affair with RFK Jr.
Oh.
per the Daily Mail. So again, not the most reputable source, but that's kind of crazy, right?
It's setting up as sort of like a Death Becomes Her story with her and the worm.
Anyway, so I'm keeping tabs on that. And then the other thing I wanted to flag was the Victoria's Secret fashion show is tonight.
Oh.
I went last year and wrote a piece about the company's kind of attempted turnaround strategy. And at the time, there were so many advertisements about it everywhere in New York. And I thought seeing the show in person was actually really fucking weird, and everybody looked way too thin. But I was feet away from Cher when she performed Believe, so it was all worth it. And I think the show worked out for the brand. Like, it got a ton of social engagement, lot of, what do they call it, earned media. This year, there's no advertisements for it anywhere. I'm very pregnant, so I had to give my ticket to Lily Smith, which I'm mad about. And they keep teasing this one as a return to sexy. And I was like, what was it before, guys?
A return
last
to sexy.
year when I interviewed people about it, I wrote a piece about this. When I interviewed executives, they were like, this is empowering. We even have a woman walking down the runway in pajama bottoms. Meanwhile, I see the pajama bottoms, they're cut out.
Oh my God.
I was like, guys. So yeah, I'm kind of curious how the show's going to pan out this year. I'm kind of curious what the earned media looks like. I want to know who's performing, because last year I saw Lisa, Tyla, and Cher, which was a really pretty impressive lineup.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. Yeah, I haven't seen anything about it this year, and I was inundated.
That's what I mean.
With it.
It's nowhere. The only reason I know about it is because I had to give away my ticket. But
well, last year it was all about shoppable content, wasn't it?
Yeah, and that will be the case this year too, I'm sure. But they need to right the ship. Things are not going well at the company, and they got this new CEO in right before the show last year. She's been in the job for a year now. I'm just curious how it's all gonna work. But it also feels like the right time politically and culturally for VS to come back, to be honest. So yeah, that's what I'm keeping tabs on.
Amazing.
And that's it for Most Innovative Companies. Chris, thanks again for coming on the show.
Well, thanks for having me, as always.
Our show is produced by Sam Gebauer, Hawa Atori, and Blake Odom, editing by Matt Toder, mix and sound design by Tad Wadhams and Nicholas Torres, and our executive producer is Josh Christensen. Remember again to subscribe, rate, and review, and we will see you next week.